Not Your Mama's House. Welcome to Not Your Mama's House. This is our historic home podcast. I'm Mary Catherine.
And I'm Coco.
And we took a somewhat of a 2-week hiatus because somebody was traveling. I can't wait to hear all about it. You're going to have to tell us.
Oh, amazing.
And we are back and more excited than ever to be coming back to you all with another really interesting house. And unlike
right.
Coco not knowing a bunch of her stuff, I did a lot of research on
What? I knew a lot of stuff. You just ask hard questions.
It's like when you study for a test and you know everything, but then you get to the test and all the questions that the teacher asks are the ones that you didn't study.
Exactly.
I hate when that happens.
I hate that. And you did such a great job of calling that out. By the way.
I was just curious. You were telling such a good story that I wanted to know more about it.
Well, there you go. Okay.
Yes.
I don't feel so bad now.
So this podcast is for anybody who likes history, who likes houses, who likes architecture, maybe a little bit of all of those. We are big home enthusiasts. We love to go to a new city and walk the neighborhoods to look at the architecture. Mm-hmm. We love reading about the architecture of different cities, different neighborhoods. And so we decided to put that in podcast form. And we really do our best to keep this PG so that it won't offend little ears or anything like that. Or, if you're in the car with grandma, she won't hear any potty words. Anyway. But
I do like that.
Thank you.
I'm sure grandmas have heard more than one potty word, but
probably said a few also in their lives.
Yeah.
But they
taught a few.
They like to broadcast the not potty word.
That's right.
Style.
That's right.
Anyway, and so thank you for being here. Please rate, review, and subscribe if you have not, because that's how we get our podcast boosted, and that's how we get this podcast network boosted as well. And also, if you have a really interesting story, or if you lived in a not your mama's type house, which is a house that's unlike anything else, that's extraordinary, that has a really interesting history, please write to us at our.roomies, that's our.roomies@gmail.com.
I like it.
Thank you. So what's new in your life?
Well, just got back from a fabulous vacation to Greece. And wow, what a beautiful part of the world.
Are you planning a family trip there? Where you take kids and grandkids?
Yes. Actually, we did think about it. We were kind of talking about it. And we're like, I don't know if the little kids could take it. Maybe when they're
a little older.
Yeah, older. It's wonderful, though. They would enjoy it.
I see you have some new bling.
I do. Isn't that the sweetest thing?
Did you do a lot of jewelry shopping?
I did, because, I do love Constantino jewelry, and it just so happens that Greece, actually Athens, is where the jewelry is made. So I indulged in some beautiful pieces. However, this beautiful piece that I'm wearing today, it's from two of my girlfriends. Just love them. They're so special and so sweet. And as you know, last year I took a package, right? So I'm not working, but about 2 weeks ago, that was actually October the 7th, my final day of work, officially retired. So they bought this for me as a retirement gift. Isn't that sweet?
That is so cute. I love that.
Actually, we all three have one of them.
You're twins.
I know, we're twins. That's right. Yes, that's also to just remind ourselves of the wonderful time that we had in Greece. Athens, Mykonos, and Santorini. Santorini is it's fabulously beautiful. It's undescribable. We stayed in what at one point in time was housed by cave dwellers. So it's kind of the side of the mountain. They took the mountain, and of course the caves had been empty for hundreds of years and made this fantastic hotel, 5-star hotel. So, hey, can't hate it.
I wonder if it was 5 stars when the cave dwellers lived there.
Well, I guess it depends on what level you were at. If you're on the very bottom, I'm going, no, probably 1 or 2 stars, you know. They say the closer you get to the top, right, the better the living back in those days for multiple reasons, such as everything flows downhill.
Oh, I thought you were going to say because you're closer to God. Just like how in the South we have big hair because it puts us closer to God.
That's right. I do miss my big hair.
Your hair is looking actually very big and fluffy today.
Is it?
Yes.
Thank you.
You're
I
welcome.
try.
The humidity was really helping
Oh
my
my
hair poof
gosh.
out this morning.
I couldn't believe it. And as you heard, we were in the process of moving.
But not
And
you, my
no.
sister.
Yeah, trying to move some of her stuff, but then we have some of our stuff in her storage unit, so trying to get that out. It's
You know,
fun and games.
you know where else you have stuff stored?
Yes, I do. I'm trying to forget that.
My garage.
Yes. I think I have several very nice rugs there.
I'm just going to lay them out in my house and the girls can play the floor is lava and
Oh,
just
no.
step on rugs. Can't touch the tile.
Can't touch the tile. Oh, wow. Boy, wouldn't they have fun?
I would have fun. I'd play that.
Yeah, actually, I would too.
Speaking of playing, so my oldest has boundless energy. And
Boundless is a good word.
um and I love it, but it's always kind of a struggle to figure out how to harness the energy into something positive and fun.
That's true.
So I have convinced her to run a 5K with me. And we are doing the Couch to 5K app.
Oh my gosh, that's
We've
awesome.
gotten through 2 weeks. Today is our
Wow.
last day of the week too. And I haven't told her. So the first 2 weeks are like the gateway drug because it's like run for 90 seconds, walk for 2 minutes, run for 90 seconds.
Yes.
And so you are like, oh, if it's going to be this easy, then I'm just going to keep doing this. Well, the third week is run for 90 seconds, walk for 90 seconds, run for 3 minutes, walk for 3 minutes.
Yes.
And so they really hook you on that. And then you're like, well, I'm already 2 weeks into this. I should probably just go ahead and do it.
Yeah.
Anyway, we have till December. So I'm not too concerned about timeline.
Right. And I think she'll be able to do it. I know you will, no problem. But I'm sure she will because she's a very competitive person as well.
Yes.
So I think she'll do too
So
really well.
please pray for us as we're going into the week 3 of actually running for 3 minutes because I'm not sure how that's going to go down.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. But I told you, my girlfriends, well, actually, it was your dad, one of my girlfriends, and her husband, which is also your dad's friend. The 4 of us did couch, what is it, couch to 5K.
Oh, yes.
I think we couldn't even make it through week 2. One twisted their knee, one had a hip injury, one had something else, and we're all just like, this is clearly for us. We've got to do something easier.
Maybe they have a couch to 5K speed walking since that is,
There
after
you
all,
go.
an Olympic sport.
That's true. That's true. I could be the next Olympic. Thought.
I have had like how you always get good ideas in the shower? They call it like hashtag shower thoughts. Well, I've had a hashtag shower thought of like, okay, now that I'm a little older, what is an Olympic sport that I could get into that's like, it is an Olympic sport, but not a lot of people do it because it's not very competitive or like not very popular in the United States.
Yeah.
And so it'd be like, so low barrier to entry. I'm fairly athletic, so I could pick it up quickly.
Right.
And then I could be an Olympian like in my 40s. And I've never actually executed on this because I do want to kind of go into the rabbit hole. For example, I play tennis.
Right.
How hard can badminton really be?
I love that. Is that an Olympic
That's
sport?
an Olympic sport.
No
Singles and
way.
doubles. Yes.
Oh
Or
my
like in the Winter
gosh.
Olympics, curling. Those people do not have six packs, they have beer bellies. I
That's what
could be a
they
curler.
curl their
Yeah,
their
exactly.
fist, yeah, to
Exactly.
their mouth. Yep.
But no, it's the stone sliding one.
Right, right.
Anyway, so my point is, I do think there's still time for me to be an Olympian.
I
And
think so.
dear listeners, you can be with me in this journey as I go down the rabbit hole eventually. One of
Hmm.
these days. That day's
One
not
of
today,
these.
though.
Right, for sure.
So,
So I have a couple of shows that someone told me were really good to watch. And actually, I've got three
okay.
Chesapeake Shores, another one called Tracker, and everyone has heard and has watched This Is Us, except your dad and I.
I haven't seen it. I haven't seen any of those. I've seen the advertisements for Tracker and for This Is Us.
So is that on CBS?
Tracker is,
Okay,
I don't know about This Is Us.
yeah. I'm not sure either. But anyway, so few good shows.
What is Chesapeake Shores about?
Someone told me, but I don't remember. Oh.
And we're laughing because Siri on my mom's phone decided to interject. And this is why I've disabled Siri on my phone.
Oh my gosh.
Please put your phone in timeout.
That was crazy. That was crazy. So evidently it's a love story, I think Siri said.
It's
I
a
don't know.
romantic comedy.
Romantic comedy.
Hmm.
Well, there you go. I was too shocked. I
She
couldn't comprehend her conversation.
was shooketh.
I was shook. So funny.
I'm still watching NCIS, but I want to watch NCIS Origins. It just came out on CBS like last week, and it's the prequel to NCIS. It's like how Gibbs got his start in NCIS.
I love that.
Mhm.
That's good, although I'm kind of mad at CBS. But anyway, that's another story for later. But they do have some good things.
They're one of the few broadcasting stations that still creates good content.
I think so.
You
I
know?
have to agree.
And I'd like to think the news side and the content creation side are run by different people. So,
They've got to be. No question.
all right. Well, shall we get started?
Yes.
Okay. So, the house that I'm doing today is probably one you've not heard of, but when I was thinking of a home to do,
Right.
I felt like we needed to highlight something that one of the most famous architects in the United States
Oh.
has
Uh-huh.
designed and built, and that would be Frank Lloyd Wright.
Right.
And so I am going to do the Hollyhock house in Los Angeles.
Hollyhock.
Yes.
Okay.
So imagine, if you will, it's 1920. A house is being built in the Hollywood area of Los Angeles on this hill that overlooks the city. The big white Hollywood sign hasn't even been built yet, so it's just raw mountainside.
Mm.
The lot chosen for this home, like I said, is a hill. It's located off Hollywood Boulevard, much to the chagrin of the architect, Frank Lloyd Wright, because Frank Lloyd Wright did not like building on hills.
Oh.
He preferred very flat landscape for his houses.
Mm.
So, and this is an era so Frank Lloyd Wright really got his start in the prairie style, and he was really one of the big names in what was considered the arts and crafts movement, which is lots of wood, dark wood, lots of kind of over-engineered pieces, lots of earth tones,
Uh-huh.
specifically made by American artisans.
So when you say over-engineered, what does that refer to?
It means like instead, say there's a lamp, and
Right.
instead of the lamp having just like a base with a, like lamp stand and then the light bulb, it
Uh-huh.
would have been like a base that was extra wide and like three pieces holding it up, and like an extra large base and like a very ornate
Right.
in like
Okay.
neutral glass tones. or like earth tones kind of glass.
So did he do a lot of Art Deco stuff?
No, so he was before Art Deco.
Okay.
So arts and crafts came before Art Deco. So arts and crafts was like the 1910s through the 1920s, and Art
Mm-hmm.
Deco was like 1920s through 1930s when streamline modern really became a thing.
I
And
see.
those two, streamline modern and Art Deco, kind of blend into each other.
Oh, okay.
So this is when Frank Lloyd Wright had really established himself as a prairie style house architect, but he was experimenting with some new architectural designs and some new architectural elements,
Mm-hmm.
including pressed concrete. So concrete blocks instead of wood. So let me get back to our story. So the client is oil heiress and theater producer Aline Barnsdall. And she is a single mom and a feminist. And her family is originally from Pennsylvania and has moved to the West Coast to kind of create this artist colony, this, theatrical artist colony, and has moved there with her daughter, Elizabeth, who she calls Betty. So Aline has asked Wright to create a place where the thespians can live, work, play, and be inspired. She wanted no ordinary home, for she was no ordinary woman. Again, she's a single mom in the 1900s, 1920s.
Right.
And she doesn't need a husband because her dad has made millions of dollars in the oil and gas business.
Mm.
So this will be Frank Lloyd Wright's first commission in Los Angeles. It's his second home in California. And they decide to name the residence Hollyhock because that was Aline's favorite flower. And for those of you who don't know what a hollyhock is, it's kind of like a gladiolus in that it's like a long stem, and it has a bunch of like flowers that flower from the stem. And but this has like a lot of greenery on it, and it has like big bloom flowers rather than like the long, skinny sword like flowers of a gladiolus.
Oh,
So
okay.
they're like big,
Uh-huh.
almost like a zinnia size
Oh, wow.
of a flower.
Okay.
And so yeah, they again like grow on this long stem, and they have a bunch of blooms like down at the bottom and then kind of up towards the top, less so, but like still green. So,
Oh, okay.
um,
I'm not sure I've ever seen one, but it sounds pretty.
yeah, they're really pretty. I'm going to plant some in my garden this fall.
Oh.
Yes. So the Hollyhock house was inspired by pre-Columbian and Japanese design. So it all began when Wright and Barnstall selected this 36-acre site that was called Olive Hill to build her vision again of a live, work, play theater campus where she could live with her young daughter Elizabeth. Her ideal plans included an actor's dormitory, a theater, a director's house, artist studios, shops, and a motion picture theater. So she wanted all of those buildings on this 36-acre campus
Wow.
so that, these artists it was
Mm-hmm.
kind of the very first vision of a think tank, if you will, because all of these people were living, working,
Uh-huh.
playing, inspiring each other, acting together. Um, anyway, so this was her vision. So they agreed to begin with just the main house and two smaller houses. So began the design and construction of the 5,000 square foot focal point, which was the main house, which would have been the director's house in her vision.
In her vision.
Yes.
But she was going to live there with her daughter.
Yes,
Okay.
because she would be the director. Quote,
Ah,
unquote.
she.
Yes.
Okay.
So the house reminds me of. Do you remember when we went to Crete and like the Minoan Palace at Knossos?
Yes.
Okay, so that's what it reminds me of, with like how very sprawling it was, even though it was just like effectively two stories, or really one
Uh-huh.
story. But it had all those courtyards, and that like very laid out, sprawling, like down corridors and into big rooms kind of feel to it, that
Right.
palace.
Right.
So that's what this house
Mm.
reminds me of.
Mhm.
And then the brown stone and lack of windows from the outside and the angled walls also remind me of an Aztec or a Mayan temple, which was part of the inspiration for this house by Frank Lloyd Wright. So what it looks like is it is um this like tan, like brownish color, and it has very few windows outward facing. All of the windows are inward facing in towards the courtyard. And there's like a courtyard in the middle, and the roof isn't pitched. It's a flat roof.
Oh, uh-huh.
And
He
it's
did a lot of flat roofs, right?
yes, he did. Um it's a little bit like a mansard roof. In not with
Mhm.
like the tiling, but with like how like flat and angled the front part of the roof
Right.
is.
Uh-huh.
So it has that going on, but it's all stone. So it's this like pressed concrete stone that he started experimenting with. And then along the entire perimeter of this house are these stylized hollyhocks. So they're not actual like the pretty decorative hollyhocks. They're
Mhm.
very like geometric or almost cubist because it's like a long line and it has these squares along that line that represent a hollyhock.
Oh, so it's
Um,
carved
it's
into the
it's pressed, but yes.
okay.
Um,
Pressed.
mhm. And so this house, when you look at it, looks like it's just one really tall story. It
Uh-huh.
is in fact like 1.5 stories because the second floor is hidden and it's like tucked on the back side of the elevation. And what also is really interesting about when you walk up to this house is it has this 50-foot long, almost like tunnel,
Mhm.
or yeah, like covered walkway,
Right. Okay.
to get you to the front door. So you don't even see the front door when you get up to the house. So you don't see much of anything except this brown stone spans with these stylized hollyhocks, and it's almost like a flat surface. So it is like very Aztec or Mayan in that way,
Mhm.
or like almost, Egyptian pyramid
Right.
kind
Type
of
of
that it's yes. Um, and so what is also really interesting is so there's a courtyard in the middle, and then there's this like cute little tiered garden out back. And then on either end is a pool. So we'll get more to that in a second. But just to give you an idea of kind of what this house looks like.
beautiful.
Yeah, it is. It's very
Unique.
unique, and especially for the time was, I mean, just something that everybody either, I obviously was not there in 1920s LA, but I imagine everybody had an opinion about this house. And it,
Oh,
it was very polarizing one way or the other. Either you loved it or you hated it. So,
wow.
um, anyway, back to my story. So, in response to Barnstall's request for a half house, half garden, the 5,000 square foot home is arranged around a central courtyard. As with many of Wright's residences, Hollyhock House has like an introverted exterior with windows that seem hidden from the outside. So, again, when you look at the house, it
Mhm.
doesn't look like it has very many windows because they're all inward facing.
It doesn't sound attractive.
It doesn't, but when you look at it, how he designed it, well, okay, let me say this. It's not my style of house.
Right.
My style is Mediterranean revival
Right.
through and
Yes.
through, or American Federal are probably my two
Right.
styles.
Mhm.
And this is, again, a mix of like Japanese and Aztec.
Hmm.
So I'm not going to be mean and say it's ugly. I'm just going to say it's not my style.
Right.
But
Well,
it's
politically correct.
it's very interesting for the time, and to think something like this was created so long ago with nothing high tech
Yeah. Yeah.
is really crazy.
Which is crazy. So if it's part takes the elements from Japanese and Aztecs, does that make it a jazz tech? I don't know. I just thought I'd ask.
Okay, so you can see what it looks like.
Yes.
Okay. So it's not easy to decode where the windows are or where the natural light is coming in from the outside, is
Hmm.
the point in saying that. The house is arranged, again, like I said, around a central courtyard. So one side is open to form a kind of theatrical stage, and it was never used as such. So, like, one end has this semicircular pool,
Mm-hmm.
and beyond the pool are these steps.
Like a swimming pool.
Um,
Or is it just a
no, just like too big to be a fountain, but not big enough to be a swimming pool. Like, Betty probably took a dip in it from time to time. You know what I
gotcha?
mean?
Yeah.
But
Little.
yeah, little Betty. Um, but it wasn't an actual swimming pool.
Ah.
Um, so it opens to this circular pool, and it has this little like bubbly fountain in the middle, and it's wrapped by semicircular seating. And on the other end of the house, it has a long rectangular pool, and it has kind of edging where you could sit also.
Uh-huh.
And then it almost has like what looks like a stage where one could do a performance just beyond the pool. So, as if you walked out from the house and you could stand on like a stage, below you would be the pool, and just beyond you would be the edging where people could sit and watch. So, it didn't say in any of the research whether or not Aline had requested Wright to put those elements in so that eventually
Right.
it could be used for performances.
Uh-huh. Right.
So I either Aline asked for that, or Wright, knowing that this was supposed to be a place for performances, put those in as options, or subconsciously put them in as a creative element to inspire these artists.
Right. Yeah.
So anyway, neither of these end pools with
Mm-hmm.
these sitting areas were used as stages, but they look like they could be stages. Just, so interesting focal point.
Right. That really is. I can really vision that. That's a great description.
Thank you. So let's see. I just read all of that, so now I'm getting or I just explained all of what I had written out, so let me get to where I need to be. Please hold. Okay.
Please hold. I like that.
Thank you. The home also has a complex system of split levels, steps, and roof terraces around the courtyard. And this is also something that reminded me of the Minoan Palace that we went to in Crete. Because if you remember, there were like steps up and steps down, like 3 steps up, 4 steps down, 3 steps over here, 2 steps over here.
I don't know how you remember all that. I mean, I barely remember being there.
It was, I think because I was wearing a boot everywhere. So I made, remember that's when I hurt my toe.
Oh,
So I
that's
made a mental
right.
note of all the steps I
Oh.
had to walk up and down. And it was like, it was annoyingly a lot in small quantities, so like 3
Yeah.
here,
Yes.
4 here. Anyway,
Right.
so that's why,
Annoying.
yes. So the courtyard had this stair. It was stylized with hollyhocks and decorative stairs that were outside. And so you would walk up the stairs and you could get to a roof terrace. And that was one way that you could get to the master bedroom where Aline slept. So there was, of course, another one inside, but that was just one way to get. And they had lots of little stairs like that. And if you look at the blueprint of the house, you'll see like 2 steps here, 3 steps here. So level changes were very much a part of this design.
Oh.
So the upper level provides access to rooftop terraces linked by bridges and staircases and offers impressive views of the Los Angeles basin and the Hollywood Hills. And it is so pretty when you look at the pictures because from this rooftop terrace, you can see all of these hills and these mountains.
So it still exists
It still
today?
exists today. Yes. And we'll get there, but it is now a museum.
Okay. I
Yes.
bet that's really, really neat.
Yes. And so the walls of the exterior are tilted back 85 degrees. So that's what kind of provides this Mayan appearance, sometimes referred to as the Mayan revival style. And then, almost in juxtaposition to that very brutalist feeling of those like thick walls tilted back or like very boxy looking walls, is all of this handcrafted leaded glass. And so that's what
Ooh.
makes up the windows.
Oh, I bet
So, like,
that's
this very
fabulous.
masculine touch with this very feminine touch.
Oh, fabulous.
And so there's also inside a grand fireplace with a large abstract bas relief and a moat. We'll get to that in a second. So water is meant to flow from a pool in the courtyard through a tunnel to the inside of the moat and out again to the other fountain. So
No.
remember those two fountains I was telling you
Yep.
about? Okay.
Yep.
So remember they're at both ends of
Right.
both
Mm.
ends of the house. So they are supposed to go from one end of the house and then in this tube to the moat that's in the house by the fireplace and then flow through that same or that same line of tubing down to the other pool at the other end.
Oh, so maybe it was a circulation type of thing. I don't know. I just know a moat should not be confused with a remote.
Or a commode if you're one of my kids.
That's right.
So the front, as I mentioned, features a 50-foot enclosed walkway that leads to the front doors. And when you walk up, you see these massive double doors that are made of cast concrete and they weigh about 250 pounds each. But they rest on these really heavy, strong pins and they swing open very easily because of that. And the keyholes are concealed with these decorative flaps that were designed by one of Wright's proteges. So, as I mentioned, the hollyhock is Aline's favorite flower, and it's used as a central theme in the house. Again, it's part of the perimeter design. And there are also planters that are decorated with this motif, and they're filled with plants themselves. Stylized hollyhocks appear on roof finials, furniture, art glass windows, and the ornamental bands of cast concrete on the structure's exterior. Oh, and sorry, I've been saying pressed concrete this whole time. It's cast concrete. So let me just put that in the corrections
Oh,
closet.
okay.
Um, and some of the furniture pieces. So I'm not sure if you know, one of the things that Wright would design when he was building these houses is in his mind, he would also be thinking about the furniture that needed to go in these houses as well. And so he would not only design the house, but also design the furniture for the
Mhm.
house. And so he designed many pieces for this house, including these really cool dining chairs that had really tall backs and they were these stylized hollyhocks again. So this like one long beam and then these square or like cubist elements coming like next to them
Right.
that were supposed to represent the hollyhock.
Oh.
So there are these big dark wooden chairs stylized in hollyhocks to be the dining room chairs.
Sounds beautiful.
Hmm. He designed many pieces of furniture for this house. And some of them were lost to time. They had photos though, and were able to recreate several of them um, later on. So, one of the interesting features is this metered glass corners at the windows. So, it's where two pieces of glass come
Mhm.
together to make a corner.
Right.
At the time, it was a very novel concept, and it would become one of the things that Frank Lloyd Wright would be known for. And it's most heavily featured in his famous house in Pennsylvania called Falling Water. It has a lot of metered
Yes.
glass there. So this was an early idea of his, and he continued to use it throughout his designs. This was the first time. So Wright notably referred to the architecture of the Holly House as California Romanza, borrowing from a musical term translating to freedom to make one's own form. And so that's exactly what they did is
And that certainly sets the stage for the Hollywood lifestyle, right?
yes, yes. From the onset, it was made
Yes.
for those unique individuals. So, Hollyhock House is a mix of tight halls that fall into large open spaces. Again, there's that juxtaposition, so your eye really catches it because it's two vastly different elements coming together, right? So, like tight halls
Yeah.
open into large airy spaces, and it's interesting because the halls also have lower ceilings,
Mhm.
and then you open up into these spaces, and the ceilings are a little bit taller. Um, Let's see. I lost my spot. I'm
I
sorry.
think the lower ceilings, that really dates homes.
Yes. It's interesting, however, it is, especially in the South, lowered ceilings weren't actually a thing until the time of air conditioning because you needed the higher ceilings because heat rises. So if you go to Galveston, for example,
It's
then you
true.
see all of the houses that have been around since, 1900s all have really tall ceilings and transoms so that you could catch
That's
those
right.
breezes.
That's true.
So I think it depends on where you are geographically as far as dating it because I mean, even in Louisiana, like New Orleans,
That's
you
right.
go there and all of the houses, even from the 1700s, have tall
Yes.
ceilings.
That's right. They sure do.
But then you go somewhere up northeast and the ceilings are lower and those houses because you wanted to trap as much heat as possible, for example, in the wintertime.
That makes sense.
So I think for Wright, it was he wanted that contrast of
Mhm.
tight and closed, flipping to open and airy, or pivoting.
Yes.
But it is interesting how many of his houses do have very that low ceiling is a design element that he uses. So when you walk in to the entrance, you have over to the left, you walk up about 4 stairs, and that's the dining room that has those really cool hollyhock chairs, those wooden chairs, specially
Mhm.
made.
Right.
So when you walk in and you go to the right, there's this slatted wall, so you can't exactly see into it. And that's the music room, and it features a whole built-in entertainment area, which may be one of the very first entertainment areas built into a house in history. And so eventually it would include a space for a turntable, for
Right.
records.
Uh-huh.
Obviously when it was first built it did not, but I think that's really interesting is they were thinking of these things ahead of time. Probably also being in Hollywood in the entertainment industry,
Yes.
Aline knew what was coming and was like, I want an entertainment system in the music
Right.
room.
Right.
So she put that in.
Mm.
So there's also a child's play area, a modernist kitchen, and that long housed the museum gift shop. So we'll get to the kitchen here in more detail shortly. But like many houses designed by Wright, Hollyhock House proved to be better as an aesthetic work than as a livable dwelling.
Yes.
Wright designed the home with LA's enviable weather in mind, forgetting that it rains on occasion. So water tended to flow over the central lawn and into the living room.
Oh, no.
And the flat roof terraces were conceived without an understanding of Los Angeles's rains. And so it would just gather and pool or collect and create low spots. The cantilevered concrete also did not stand up well to the area's earthquakes. So, because remember, this was
That's
that new
right.
cast concrete.
Yes.
Yeah, not a friend of earthquakes, it turns out. So there were a considerable number of revisions done to this house over time. Also, two smaller structures called Studio Residence A and Studio Residence B were built on the grounds. Residence A still stands. Barnstall also commissioned a private kindergarten for Betty to go to, but it was never actually built. The property also includes a smaller building designed by Richard Neutra, which was one of Wright's proteges who helped on this project. So here are some interesting interior notes. Wright created 130 art glass windows for the house, and approximately 100 of the originals survive. Others have been
That's impressive.
yes. Others have painstakingly been replicated from photographs and drawings. Hollyhock House is one of the last residences for which Wright designed a complete art glass scheme. His other Los Angeles projects were to include simple plate glass windows. The dining room windows are set low on the wall so as to allow one to best appreciate the garden views while seated at the table. I think that's very thoughtful and very forward thinking, too, to be like, well, generally, when people are sitting in this room, they're not going to be standing up, they're going to be sitting down. So let's put the
That
windows a little
is.
bit lower.
That's right.
Um, I wanted to make sure that we're going to get to a few of the other funny parts. Okay, yes, we are. It's just further down here. You have something
Okay.
to look forward to. Sorry.
Oh, no,
Just
I was just thinking about the lower windows and the water coming in. So, lower windows, I guess they could let the water out through the lower windows.
there you go.
I mean, got to be an advantage.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't think gutters were a thing. When did gutters become a thing? Do you
I
know?
don't know.
There were no gutters on this house, and those probably would have helped a lot.
Probably.
So, all right, as I mentioned, when you walk in, right, to the left is the
Mhm.
dining room, to the right is the music room. Then you look straight ahead, and there's this hallway. And at the end of the hallway is the living room. And when you walk into the living room, there's this massive gray stone fireplace. And it features an abstract hollyhock motif etched into the cast concrete. And the hearth represents all the elements combined. So there's the element of fire, which is the fireplace, the element of concrete or element of earth, which is the concrete. The skylight above the fireplace represents air, and the little moat/pool thing below, now which is now empty, serves as the water element. So when you go tour it, there's no water in the moat. I assume it had to do with leaking
Mhm.
because the moat wasn't used very often after it was built. They realized there were some issues with how everything was plumbed and piped in place.
Right.
And so very shortly after the home was built, they stopped using the moat. So, like I mentioned, all the water ran through the house. And then it would have surfaced in the living room, and it was an integral design of the show-stopping fireplace. So, a little sad that it no longer has water in there. But
So the water came all the way through the house and stopped at the fireplace?
yes, where the moat was.
Okay.
And then again would go through the other end of the house to
Mhm.
the pool at the other side.
Very cool.
All right. And then also in this room, designed by Wright, were oversized sofas, and they faced this focal point fireplace, just like the fireplace was a stage. And in some ways, it does look like it should be a stage.
Because it's so large?
Yes. And because it has that separation, that moat separation,
Oh, right.
and it
Mhm.
has, a seating area.
Right.
So again, with the theatrical vibes going through the
Mm,
house.
yes.
Yes. And then the skylight was really neat. It was art glass overhead, and there are several skylights. I Googled to see how many skylights were in this house, and it didn't say. I'm sure if you go on a tour and you're there in person, it'll tell
Uh-huh.
you how many skylights are in this house, but I couldn't find anywhere that said how many skylights were in the house. It's quite a few, though.
And so you said the skylight. Describe that again.
So it's art glass. It was designed by Wright, and it's directly over the fireplace to provide the element of air.
Okay.
So the yes, as I mentioned, the fireplace pool did not work, and it was disconnected shortly after the home's completion. Nevertheless, it anticipates the inclusion of water in Wright's most famous house, Falling Water. Like, that house
Right.
has lots of water elements.
Yes, it does.
In the 60s, the dip where the water was contained was built up and carpeted over to make the hearth flush with the floor. And I actually think that happened in like 1946, 47. They renovated the house and did a lot of updates, but I saw a picture of the house in that living room specifically from 1960, and it just is the hearth, and then it's just carpet. Really ugly beige
Oh,
carpet too.
ooh.
But they covered up the moat.
Oh, that's a shame.
Yes. So at Hollyhock House, the connection manifested itself directly in the design, which Wright characterized as California romanza, as I mentioned, using the musical term for freeform romanza. And the architect captured the commission's creative potential, given, as he described, quote, a radical client like Aline Barnsdall, a site like Olive Hill, a climate like California, and an architect head on for freedom, end quote. Few details survive that document the music room's furnishings. Like I mentioned, this is where that built-in entertainment system was.
Right.
But it likely would have contained a piano as well as a cabinet for the latest playback technology and a gramophone.
A gramophone. Right.
The Victrola record player and piano on display there currently are from the period, but not original to the house. And the tall cabinets were added by Wright's son Lloyd as part of later renovations in the 40s. So let's move on to the kitchen. Okay, the kitchen is a galley kitchen. It's pretty small given the size of the house, although it was quite some time the gift shop. So,
Mm-hmm.
and I wonder too if the reason the kitchen is so small is because Aileen anticipated she wouldn't be in it very often and it would
Right.
mainly be a cook.
Uh-huh.
And so kitchens of today in 5,000 square foot houses are large because generally people are gathering there. In a house of 5,000 square feet at that time, you would have likely had helpers, maids, cooks,
Right.
that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so you would have wanted it to be tighter because you would want it to have less of a footprint and also be easier for maids and cooks to
Makes sense.
work
Mm-hmm.
and move about. Right off of the kitchen is stairs down to the basement where the laundry and elements like that were. And then just back past that stairwell were 2 bedrooms for the maid and butler and cook. So that was kind of the like servants wing.
Right.
Um so what's interesting about the kitchen though is given that it was likely more utilitarian, right? Or wouldn't have been used as a design element, right? Not
Right. Mm-hmm.
not like kitchens of today where you want to make sure that it's cohesive with whatever room is attached to
Exactly.
it. It wasn't necessarily the case back then. However, the all the cabinets are mahogany and the countertops are mahogany, except where the sink and the stove are. That piece of countertop is stainless steel. So
Oh.
it's this skinny galley kitchen that has mahogany cabinets down below, mahogany countertops, one section of stainless steel. And then what's interesting too is it doesn't have very many upper cabinets. All of the upper cabinets are just open shelving.
Oh. Like today. They're
Yes.
doing that.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. New
And
trend.
um and it displayed some of the china that Aileen had. So that was kind of, I guess, a design, quote unquote, like design element was
Right.
displaying this beautiful china that she had.
Which is so strange because no one would ever see it, right?
Not really. Yeah. Um I do have a question. Would you ever
Yes.
have open shelving?
Yes, I think we're going to put some in the casita. But it's not more for, well, yes, I would. And I would put plates, cups, etc. All one color, right? Not a lot of different colors,
I
but
just think it's so unhygienic
I
because
know minimalistic.
all the dust. Just think every time you eat, you're
That's
probably
true.
eating at least a little bit of dust.
Oh, that's a good, that is a good, forget it. I'm not doing it.
Just saying, you'd have to wipe your plate every time
Well,
before you
that's
put anything
right.
on it.
That's true. You would. At
Something to think
least the top plate.
something to think about.
That's right.
So the original design is not actually known. All we know about the original design of the kitchen is from one single incomplete plan. And the space included a separate pantry that was a pass through to access the kitchen. And so when all these renovations took place in the mid 40s, the kitchen was updated to what it looks like today.
I see.
Yes, but we don't exactly know. We assume that it looked pretty similar,
Right?
but we don't exactly know.
Yeah.
Yes. All right. So, real quick, let's flip to the dining room. So, it had those warm wood surfaces, it had a hipped ceiling, art glass windows that were, lower on the walls than normal windows. And these were all features that were famous in Wright's prairie style houses. However, here he created a less formal open space where moldings and a shift in ceiling height are all that distinguish the dining area from the kitchen pathway. So it's not like big, formal, grand, and then
Right.
like little pathway. It's just the elevation change in the ceilings are all that give you an indication that you're moving from the dining room into the little passageway to the kitchen.
Wow.
Yes. So, the chairs and the table that are in the Hollyhock house today are original Wright designs exclusive to the house. They were built locally of tropical hardwood and reflect variations on the hollyhock motif used throughout the home. Wright often designed furniture for his commissions, as I mentioned. He even specified finishes, fabrics, and placement as part of his desire to create a complete and harmonious environment. He was OCD. Sorry, not
No
sorry, but
doubt.
that's just the fact of it.
Yeah. Hey, it worked for him.
I mean, yes, we are still talking about him almost 100 years
That's
on, more than
right.
100 years on.
Yes,
So
that's right.
there you
That's
go.
right.
At Hollyhock House, Barnstall and Wright differed over plans for the interior and compromised by Wright furnishing only the dining room and living room. Therefore, not all of the architect's designs for Hollyhock House were executed. So she didn't love all of his furniture. Here's the deal. They didn't really like each other and they didn't really get along.
Ah,
And I think probably a lot of it had to do with Aline likely got her way a lot because she
Yep.
had a lot of money and she was outspoken and, people who
probably demanding. Very
probably,
demanding.
yes, and knew what she wanted. However, Wright also knew what he wanted. And so therein lies the problem.
Right. Makes sense.
So while Frank Lloyd Wright designed furniture for Hollyhock houses living in dining rooms, Barnstall favored her own furnishings in other spaces, including the terraces and the patios and the other rooms for outdoor living. So it's kind of funny, you had these like very masculine, thick wooden furniture elements in the dining room and the living room. And then outside you had wicker and wrought iron, like fancy patio furniture.
Funny. Oh, that is.
Yes.
Yeah, very different.
And there's this picture too of Betty, and she's sitting with one of her friends, and they're in this like covered awning glider
Right.
sitting outside. And it's just very funny because it's like this very brutalist kind of house and this like dainty little rocker.
Yeah, funny.
The design and the construction of the main house wasn't easy or cheap. And during the construction, multiple financial disagreements and personality differences between Wright and Barnstall led to her firing Wright in 1921. So thankfully, though, Wright had several people working on this, and one of his proteges, Rudolf Schindler, took over. A lot of this could have been due to the fact that Wright was focused on designing and building the Imperial Hotel in Japan at the same time he was designing and building this house. So he was, needless to say, a little bit distracted. And that's
Oh,
also where some of these like Japanese
right.
elements come
That
into
makes
play.
sense. Okay.
So the original estimated cost for building the house was $50,000, which in today's money is a little over $955,000.
That is,
Yeah,
that's not much.
no, it's not.
I mean,
However,
it is, but
in the grand scheme of things, considering
right.
what this house is and the
Exactly.
design elements it had in it.
Precisely.
Yes. However, it turned out to be $150,000, which is $2.489 million in today's money, which
Makes sense.
seems a little more in line with
Right.
everything, given everything that goes on in this house and is featured in this house.
Right.
So, this 5,000 square foot home with its 17 rooms and 7 bathrooms was not what Aline had in mind. She disliked it so much that not only did she decide not to complete the rest of the artist colony, she decided to never move into the mansion. So I think they did go and stay there from time to time because, again, there are pictures of Betty, and her friends playing
Yeah.
around and stuff, but it was never their permanent residence. So in 1923, she offered the Hollyhock house and 11 acres of her property to Los Angeles to serve as a public library and park. The city initially rejected her offer.
Oh my goodness.
They're like, no, we're good. We've got all these mountains.
Oh my goodness.
We're fine. However, in 1927, the city changed its mind and accepted the land and its buildings for an art park dedicated in memory of Aline's father, Theodore Barnstall. So, under the stipulation that a 15-year lease be given to the California Art Club for its headquarters. So, the club was there until 1942 when the house was almost demolished. And Hollyhock underwent a large renovation in 1946, which is when the kitchen was updated and the music room was updated, probably when that moat was taken out and carpeted over. The bedroom upstairs where Aline would have stayed was changed into like a men's lounge. And then the downstairs room where Betty stayed was changed into a women's lounge.
Oh.
And real quick, because I didn't cover the bedrooms, but there were 4 total bedrooms.
Okay.
Plus the 2 servants' bedrooms, which were smaller.
Right.
And so in Betty's room, she had this little like play area off of it where she could play with her toys. And then there was a Jack and Jill, and it was her nursemaid's room was attached to it.
Oh.
But she had an ensuite. And then Aline upstairs had an ensuite and a sleeping porch and a dressing room. Was, very of the time, but very fancy. So just wanted to take a quick tangent on that.
Yeah.
So big renovation in 1946, and the house has been used as an art gallery and as a United Service Organizations facility over the years. In 1963, Hollyhock was recognized as a historic cultural monument by the city of Los Angeles. In 1971, the building was listed on the National Register of Historic Places. In 1974, LA began sponsoring another set of renovations. And the United States Department of the Interior designated Hollyhock House a National Historic Landmark in 2007. So over the years, the residents fell into disrepair again due to the earthquakes and the design faults of Wright not realizing what actually goes on in LA.
Yes.
And so in the early 2000s, Project Restore undertook a significant renovation of the residence, and it reopened to the public in 2015. So I'm not exactly sure, but I think in that final renovation is when they took away the carpet and they brought back the moat, and they tried their best to do a design that was as close to the original as possible. And that's when they made replica furniture for what would have been there or what was missing.
Yeah. So if you visit it today, the moat is there
It's there,
near
but
the
water's not
house?
in it.
But what?
Yes.
Okay.
So water is only in from the pictures, it looks like water is only full-time in one of the features, and that's
Uh-huh.
the semicircular one at one end.
What a shame.
I know, but again, I think it probably is because he's an architect and not an engineer,
Right.
and
Didn't quite work.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So today, as in like in the last 10 years, kind of today, um, in July of 2019, along with 7 other buildings designed by Wright in the 20th century, Hollyhock was added to the UNESCO World Heritage List. So it is the first time a modern American architecture has been recognized on the World Heritage List. So, and it was one of 8 seminal Wright buildings that were collectively recognized at that time. And then Hollyhock has also joined Yosemite National Park and Redwood National Forest and State Park as the 3rd site in California with a distinguished UNESCO status. So that is all about Hollyhock.
Oh, that's a must-see.
Yes. And I have, as I was reading through this, I was kind of laughing because um, so Neiman Marcus, I can't remember if it was the Neiman's family or the Marcus family. I think it was the Marcus family, had asked Frank Lloyd Wright to design a house for them in Dallas. And I remember reading this article and it was really funny because he came and he stayed like for one weekend in October. And he came up with this design for a house that
Uh-huh.
was basically you live outside like 3/4 of the time and you're only inside like to eat and shower kind of thing. Like
What?
every house had like half of a room and then the other half was like this huge patio
Oh my
because he came in
gosh.
October, which is like the best time to come to Texas. You
Exactly.
know, no
Yes.
humidity,
Yeah, right.
no
Oh,
inclement weather.
funny.
Anyway, and so the Marcus family was like, yeah, no, we can't do that. And I'm trying to think like some of the features were just like so silly. It had a courtyard too. You know, he
Right.
was going through this courtyard.
With water running through it face.
There wasn't any water running through this one.
No.
No, but anyway, so what happened is it made the Marcuses really mad because I think they ponied up a lot of money
Uh-huh.
for this design. And then it was like something they absolutely could not use because you can't be outside in Dallas in the middle of the summer
Right.
with
Absolutely.
110 degrees.
Oh,
Yeah, or
absolutely.
sleeping like that for that matter.
That's right.
Anyway, so they contacted one of the people that worked under Wright and were like,
Uh-huh.
listen, we really need you to help us out because we cannot build this house. And so he came back and he did, and he created this really cool house. It still stands today. And it's in like the White Rock Lake area.
Right. Uh-huh.
And it's on this street called Nonesuch. It's like 10 Nuts, Nonesuch Place or something. One of the coolest features of it is the library features a leather floor.
Oh my gosh.
Isn't that neat?
That is neat.
And the family lived
Terrible
there
upkeep.
very happily for many years.
Oh, that's great.
Yes. And yes, but point being, Wright's attention to detail when it came to climate was not there.
Yeah. Left a little to be desired.
Indeed. So,
Yes, makes sense.
yes.
Well, that was great.
Yes. Anything to add?
No, I don't think so. Except the fact that we have a new design style.
Yes.
Jazz tech.
Jazz tech. California Romanza.
Yeah, I prefer jazz
Mayan
tech.
revival. Jazz tech. We'll add it to the list. All right.
Okay,
Well, thanks for listening to this hot mess.
and God bless.